na actually he really literature, and he even took up masteral degree and doctorate degree in US. So parang that's the time I realized na kaya pala he is really good in grammar and English. So parang finally, what I want to say is parang in the life of a person, you will meet a lot of people. And only a few people can really impress you and influence you. And Dr. Ong is definitely one of these persons that really inspired me, influenced me, and really impressed me. Actually, I'm kind of confused like what I will do in the future after my graduation. But then he somehow influenced me, like how the way he looked at material things, the way he treated his work, and the way he valued relationship, the way he valued life and leisure really influenced me. So it also gave me some idea like what I should choose, like the career and the job. So I just wanna say thank you.
We're very fortunate that naging mentor namin si Dr. M. And yes, we were with him December 5. It's, yes, tama si Dave. It's 5 hours. Supposed to be parang 2 hours meeting now for our pre-defense. But since there's a lot of things to be done, he really stayed us with us. So what I really love about Dr. Ong is his passion for work. I think he was not supposed to be our mentor already since medyo naglalay siya for work, but he still continued to be our mentor. He said yes to the job. So we're very fortunate, and kind more than just a mentor, he also, like what Monica said, he would also share us some of the things that he had learned in the corporate world. That's what I think. We're not just talking about the papers work. Very tactless siya. If he doesn't like the work, talaga sabihin niya, cancel it. And ayaw niya ng masyadong mahabang paper. He always told us to be straight to the point, to be focused, and that's what I like. That's what also nung keeping from Philippine Daily Core like about it, because nung medyo sabog talaga kami as a team. But with Dr. Ong, he stayed us in focus. May one goal siya, and that's what makes it work. So we're very fortunate to be with him. And for sure, he can study a lot. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Monica and Abigail. Next up, we have it's a 15-minute audiovisual presentation that I prepared with my mother pointing a gun to my head. Please pardon the crudity of the presentation. We kind of rushed it. It's basically a synopsis of the pusong mamon underneath the grumpy exterior. So,
It was January 1945, toward the tail end of the Second World War, when this little bundle of joy, Jaime Salvador Ong, was born to Juan Sanido Ong and Adelaida Manreza Anuel. Doesn't he look like a ray of human sunshine? Skip forward a few years. This grumpy-faced little girl was born to Eufemio Alcantara Tejada and Estelita Javerian Patrimonio. some unforeseen twist of fate, these two would swap demeanors and be stuck with those facial expressions for the rest of their lives. But hold on, we're getting ahead of the story. Let's go back to that little boy, my father. Young Jimmy Ong, or Vong, as his mother would call him, was fifth among a brood of 7 children and the youngest boy. The introverted little boy preferred spending time alone. Despite preferring to keep a low profile, Mom Pop had a knack for calling attention to himself by virtue of his grades. In 1956, he enrolled at Guangxi, a new school for Chinese Filipino students in Pechague, Manila. Guangxi would later transfer to Green Hills, San Juan, and become Senior School. In 1960, Jimmy Ong, the delinquent little 15-year-old loner, would become valedictorian of Xavier's very first batch of high school graduates. It was no secret that Juan Ong Sr. had grand plans for each of his children. He tried to get Pop to join the military, starting with an education at West Point. Pop obliged, but again, being the delinquent that he was, he had a tedious plan to weasel his way out of actually enrolling there. The entrance exam to West Point had 4 parts, and applicants must pass all 4. The first part was English, and as we all know, Pop had a proven knack for English. He had absolutely no reason to fail that part. The second part was math. Pop couldn't fail that without arousing his father's suspicion. The third part was science. Still no can-do. He was fairly decent at that too. The fourth and final part of the exam was American history. Eureka! He could legitimately say he knew nothing about American history, and therefore failed the test in glorious fashion. If I'm not mistaken though, he knew quite a few of the answers, but got them wrong on purpose. And so, having dodged a bullet, Pop enrolled in the University of the Philippines, majoring in engineering. He eventually shifted to AB English, majoring in journalism. Fortunately, the buildings of the College of Engineering and the College of Arts and Sciences look exactly the same. In UP, Pop joined a student organization, the UP Student Catholic Action, or UPSCA. Back then, and to an extent until today, UP was known for being godless. In Pop's own words, there were horror stories of impressionable freshmen seduced by the sophistries of faculty freethinkers, sliding straight into the grinning jaws of the Communist Party. The recommended preventive to impiety then was joining UPSCA. It was in UPSCA that Pop would make many lifetime friends. To this very day, I would come across names that would sound vaguely familiar, but upon my mother's insistence is yet another tito or tita from UPSCA. If memory serves, Pop never got to attend his own college graduation. He had to fly out to Cotabato to take his first job at a newspaper called the Mindanao Cross. While working for the Cross, Pop applied for scholarships at 3 universities in the US, including Stanford University. To make a long story short, he got into all 3, but chose to go to Stanford. While at Stanford, Pop couldn't help from participating in certain extracurricular activities. The 60s were a time of political unrest, and Pop decided to join the fun. It was once rumored that research in one of Stanford's off-campus labs was going to be used for the war in Vietnam. The Stanford students then rallied together and closed down the labs. They held their ground for as long as they could, but had to disperse when the police started getting rough. Pop's claim to fame was that he could outrun any cop in California. However, my Uncle Dave would like to add a disclaimer. Pop was not, and I quote, the fleetest of beings. He outran the cops because the event was so chaotic and there were far too many students for the police to chase down all of them. Sorry, Pop. But now to give Uncle Dave a proper introduction. It was also at Stanford that Pop met a man who would become one of his closest friends, David Barker Jones, one of two men after whom I was named. They had many misadventures through a friendship that spanned over 40 years. It's worth noting, however, that the pictures shown here were taken many years and pounds after the two outran California police. Uncle Dave is also a former Marine, so I think I'll stop poking fun at him for my own safety. Illegal activity was not Pop's primary focus. He did, after all, go to Stanford to get his postgraduate degrees. He finished his MA in 1968 and came home in the early 70s, though he hadn't finished his doctoral dissertation yet at the time. Upon returning to the Philippines, he teamed up with a few fellow troublemaking journalists, including lifelong friend Jerry Hill and my godmother, Imelda Nicolas, and established the short-lived Imelda's Monthly. The Marqueses terminated the periodical after only 2 issues, both of which we thought were lost in the mists of time. The police confiscated all of Ninang Nellie's spare copies back in 1972. Then, Pop joined the Philippines Herald. However, due to the implementation of martial law, that paper was shut down as well. Things did not bode well for Pop's career in journalism.
As of the 31st of this month, I signed proclamation number 781 placing the entire Philippines under martial law.
And so, Pop decided to pursue a change in career. He would join the corporate world. In 1974, he joined the San Miguel Corporation, to which he would devote the next 24 years of his life. In 1976, a young lady from Bacolod named Cynthia Tejada came to Metro Manila to seek her fortune and was recruited to the public relations office of San Miguel. Barely 2 months into the job, she was reassigned. She had been appointed to be the new librarian of the research department. Her new boss, Jaime S. Ball. Nowadays, we call that para-paraan. There were many women in the life of Jaime Hall. The joke is that he had a different harem for every chapter of his life. In college, there were girls he'd ride the bus home with. In Stanford, he'd write movie reviews to make pocket money, and he'd always bring Dave along. In San Miguel, he met 3 ladies who shared his passion for cinema, and so they would all go to the movies together. But despite the other ladies in his San Miguel harem, his eyes were set on only one woman. Finally, in February 1977, Pop gathered the guts to make a move. He borrowed his brother Monet's Volkswagen Beetle to bring flowers to Mom, who wasn't at home at the time. Pop dropped off the flowers and then headed home. Unfortunately, pulling up into the driveway, he ran over his mother's prized flower pots. Lola was absolutely livid. After that, to the best of my mother's knowledge, Pop never drove again. Adhering to the proper behavior expected of a dalagang Pilipina, my mom played hard to get. They became sweethearts only several months later, in October 1977. Unfortunately, after about a year of working at San Miguel, Mom started developing a chronic fever. Doctors suspected that she wasn't accustomed to the pollution of Metro Manila, so they advised her to take a vacation back in her hometown. And it worked! In light of her health issues, Mom requested to be transferred to San Miguel's Mandaue complex. Cebu wasn't nearly as polluted then as it is today. This broke Pop's heart, but ultimately he agreed. The separation lasted 4 years, with Pop flying out to Cebu to visit his sweetheart, schedule and wallet permitting. In 1981, Mom helped coordinate the visit of then Chairman and CEO of Coca-Cola, the late Roberto Goizueta, to Cebu. She must have done a good job because she was called back to the head office in Manila. This time, love would prevail over the body's need for clean air. In April 1982, Pop and Mom got married. A testament to how private they were as a couple, they told barely anyone apart from Tito Mon Pasicola and my mom's sister, my Tita Sonia, who acted as witnesses to the civil wedding officiated by fellow UP alumnus, Judge Jaime Salazar. They didn't even bring a camera, so sorry, there won't be any pictures here. Pop didn't even tell his own mother, who lived with him at the time. To appease her fiery rage, they arranged a small reception for the families of both the groom and bride, and of course, invited my lola. Later, they would have a church wedding, but still a very private one. It was only 4 years into the marriage that my mother realized she had a rival for Pop's affections, ping pong. Half of our old house in Mapayapa was devoted to a ping pong table, which was generously donated by my mother's cousin. It would also serve as a makeshift play area for my sister and me. To give Pop credit, nothing stopped him from volunteering to babysit us. When the two of us started to go to school, we moved to a new house, though Pop's underlying motive would be to have a better place to put his ping pong table. Throughout all his 24 years in San Miguel, Pop would sporadically mutter to Mom that he was a misfit in the corporate world. At the end of his tenure in San Miguel, his good friend Isagani Cruz floated his resume around the faculty of De La Salle University. It was the marketing department in the College of Business and Economics that showed active interest in hiring Pop. Protesting that his marketing background was a farce, he accepted the position on one condition: that in addition to marketing, he be allowed to pursue his lifelong dream, teaching literature, Shakespeare to be precise. Later on, he would become department chair of marketing, holding the position for 7 years. At the age of 65, he had to step down from his full-time position, but was retained as a part-timer. He then took on an additional part-time load at Enderun College, teaching courses on business communication and English. Throughout his life, Pop was always the kind of person to face challenges head-on, always doing things his own way. He did as his father told him by taking the West Point exam, but chose to go to UP anyway. In Stanford, he stood up for what he believed in. During martial law, he and a handful of colleagues fearlessly poked fun at the Marcoses in a time when doing so meant putting their lives at risk. When Mom was in Cebu, he fought to keep their long-distance relationship alive. In San Miguel, he would get his staff to push their limits and broaden their horizons. In La Salle and Enderun, he would go out of his way to help even the most problematic of his students. Despite going through 42 sessions of radiation therapy, his students remained his primary concern. The day before he passed away, he had a meeting with a thesis group that lasted 5 hours. He was determined to go to class the next day. Pop was a man who did not go gentle into that good night. He raged against the dying of the light.
With love today. But that is nothing new. We thought about you yesterday and days before that too. We think of you in silence. We often speak your name. Now all we have are memories and your picture in a frame. Your memory is our keepsake, with which we'll never part. God has you in His keeping. We have you in our hearts.
And finally, we have the one true love of Pop's life, my mother, who would like to say her own few words.
James' spirit must be shrinking already from embarrassment. After all the attention and revelation about his life and suffering. But actually doubts me. I would like to reveal something about the relationship. In the same vein that Jaime was so spoiled with me, and I came forth and then it selected me. And for this, I'd like to borrow a phrase from the other novelist, like Shakespeare. My crown is in my heart. Not a man not there with diamonds and angel stones, nor to be seen. The crown is gold. So long happy. Will we meet again after life? Empty glasses or not. Even those
to Jimmy Ong. Thanks for coming, everyone. Speaking of, we have one more thing. I guess they started already. The newspaper that I mentioned in the ABP, Another's Monthly, we actually found copies. They were torn up by my sister, but we managed to salvage them and we reproduced them, and we're giving out 3 copies. There's more food, so have your fill, and again, thank you for coming.
Hindi ako mahilig sa picture.
Hindi ko mahilig sa picture. Picture is forever.
Sama na lang kaya tayo. Sino? Ay, naku.
Guwapo.
Ay, naku. Ay, naku.
I recall he really liked that poem. He had certain favorites.
No, but he was saying, we have this conception of literature by
Convenient talaga.
Hindi yung screen, nag-dim na lang. Katadal.
really meant
Nag-dim na yung
Alam ko sinadya mo yung
Before
video.
he passed away, he had breakfast with mom. No, I'm going to class today.
And after his long class, he met with you.
No, he met me first before that.
Before that.
He said he had and he was probably
Really proud of you. Sinabi naman. He talked about you. They exchanged notes about
Magkano ng ano sa akin?
Thank you.